Hey guys, this video is going to teach you how to get started playing the bassoon if you are currently or if you have previously played the flute. And even if you haven't played the flute, stick around because a lot of these tips and tricks that I'm going to teach you are going to be relevant to almost anyone who wants to get off on the right track. My name is Natalie Law, and I'm a bassoonist and a music educator, and one of my favorite things to do is teach people how to play the bassoon. So if you're trying to learn this instrument and you're struggling, you maybe need some help, go ahead and hit the subscribe button because I'm going to be uploading videos that are going to help you get where you want to go as a bassoonist. If you're like most people, you're probably switching to the bassoon from another instrument. And if you're switching from the flute, then you're in luck today because I have the perfect quick start guide to get you started off on the right track. If you're used to carrying a flute in one hand, then one of the biggest things you're going to have to get used to is carrying around a much larger instrument and supporting that instrument in the correct way. Now, whenever you're walking around with the bassoon or you're holding the bassoon, you never, ever want to hold the bassoon from the top part. This is the bell. You want to hold it from primarily from this bottom joint. Always be holding this bottom joint right here. This metal thing right here, it's called the bocal, and it's very expensive and it's very delicate and it bends very easily. It's a very common thing that students break when they are starting out on the bassoon. So rather than walking around carrying it in your instrument, what you'll want to do is take the bassoon out, take the bocal out, and either hold it in your hand or you can put it in the bell like this. Make sure you don't have any water in the bocal itself because you don't want water dripping down into the bell. But you can place it in there and walk around with it, and then you're less likely to bang it into something. When you're putting a bassoon together, you want to make sure that it's on a flat surface such as the floor or a table or a chair or something like that. The other thing you want to remember is that you want to try and hold the instrument from places where you're not going to be crunching any keys or causing any damage to the instrument. So we're going to start with this joint right here. This is the boot joint, okay? And you'll notice that there are two holes in the boot joint. There is the larger hole and smaller hole. All right, the next joint that you're gonna grab is the wing joint, and that's this one right here. You'll see this. And you'll notice how I'm holding the wing joint. Yes, my hand is covering some of the key work, but in general, I'm grasping it from a part where there's not a lot of key work. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna twist it and put it into the smaller hole here. And then I'm gonna grab the long joint, which is this guy right here, and I'm gonna put the long joint inside this concave part of the wing joint. All right, and once you have the wing joint and the long joint fitted into the boot joint like this, you may have what I have, which is a body lock right here. So I'm just gonna snap that in place. You might have a body lock that's closer down here. It may not look the exact same as mine. It still does the same thing. It holds these two joints together. Now, the last joint you wanna get is the bell. The bell has one key right here, and hopefully you can see this. You're gonna hold this key down, and you're gonna put the bell on like this so that these two keys line up with each other. Then you're finally gonna put the bocal on the bassoon. You never wanna hold the bocal like this, okay? You always wanna put it in with the round part. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna twist it in there, and you'll notice that the pip on the bocal lines up with the whisper keypad on the wing joint. The last part is an optional thing. You might have this. This is a hand crutch, and if you have it, it probably does not look like this. It's probably black and not quite as curvy as mine. I have a handmade one, and it's going to fit in down here, and then that's gonna fit like this. And that way I can put my hand around the bassoon. So you finally got the bassoon all put together and you're ready to go, right? Maybe not. You're probably wondering, well, how do I actually hold this thing while I'm playing it? Don't worry, I'm gonna show you how. So once you have the seat strap set up on the chair, then you need to sit down and hook the bassoon into your seat strap. Now I have a little hook that goes in, but you may have a different seat strap setup. When you're just resting, not playing, actively playing, you can hold the bassoon like this and the seat strap will actually hold the majority of the weight of the bassoon. But when you're ready to start playing, you want to start by making sure that you're in a comfortable, upright, good posture position. You're not slouching back, you're not leaning forward. And you want to learn how to balance the bassoon, how to bring the bassoon to you. So you're going to bring it in front of you, and you might need to adjust the level of the bassoon. So you might need to adjust upward with your seat strap, or you might need to adjust downward, whatever you need to do to make sure that the reed is coming in at a straight line to your mouth. So once you have the bassoon kind of in this position where it's comfortable and you're ready to play, then your hand position is going to be such that you have 3 fingers over these 3 tone holes. You may have a key on instead of a tone hole right here, and that's totally fine. You still put your 3rd finger on your left hand there, and then your right hand, you have 1, 2, 3, just like that. So this is a view of the back side of the bassoon that you will see, and your right thumb is going to be placed where mine is, over what is called the B flat key, and your left thumb is going to be placed right here over what is called the whisper key. And this is kind of your home base. This is where your thumbs are going to hang out, not necessarily pressing the keys down, but this is where you're going to start from. And then as you learn more fingerings, your thumbs are going to move around, slide around on these keys, and then you'll be able to play other fingerings. This might be a good time for you to pause the video and just make sure that you have your setup just exactly like mine before moving on. If you've only ever played the flute before, then you've probably never encountered reeds. I'm going to give you some basic information just so you kind of understand what you're getting into and what you need to know to get started. Now, the bassoon and the oboe are both called double reed instruments, and the main reason for that is because we play double reeds. And all that means is that there's 2 pieces of cane or bamboo that are vibrating together to make sound. This is unlike a clarinet or a saxophone where there's just one single reed that's vibrating against a mouthpiece. We have 2 pieces of cane. Professional bassoonists and oboists usually make their own reeds. And if you're just getting started out, or even if you've been playing for a while, you really don't need to learn how to make reeds just yet. It's kind of a complicated process on its own. You just need to be worried about finding high quality reeds. And ideally, if you can get reeds that are handmade by a real bassoonist, you're gonna have the best quality reeds usually. Luckily, you can buy reeds from a lot of places, online, on a local music store. You can even buy them from my website, buildingabassoonist.com, which I'll link down to in the description. The question often comes up, well, how often do I have to replace my reeds? And the answer is that it depends. It depends on how often you're using the reeds, how much you're rotating them. It depends on the qualities of the reeds themselves. So your reeds could last anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months, depending on your rotation schedule and how well you're taking care of them. The way that you soak the reed is that you want to put the whole thing in the water cup. I usually do it as the very first thing I do before I put my bassoon together to allow it a couple minutes to soak. When you're switching from the flute to the bassoon, one of the biggest differences you'll notice is the embouchure. And if you don't know what embouchure means, it's just a really fancy word for how your mouth fits around the reed. To make a bassoon embouchure, you're going to start by making a whistling face. And even if you can't whistle, just pretend like you can whistle. Now, in addition to the whistling face, we want to take our lower lip and put it just slightly over our bottom teeth to make a little bit of a cushion. So whistle, and then bottom lip over bottom teeth. And that's basically the bassoon embouchure. Now, there's a couple key points that you want to keep in mind as you are learning the embouchure. What I notice with students is that I'm constantly having to adjust their embouchure because they start playing and they kind of forget how their mouth is on the reed because they're focused on other things. So you want to make sure that your corners are in all the time. You never have a flat lip, basically. You want to make sure that your mouth and your oral cavity is very open. They have a lot of space in there. And you want to make sure that your front lip or your top lip is just slightly ahead of the bottom lip. And so your top lip is going to be just behind this front wire, and your bottom lip is going to be just slightly behind that. So it's probably going to look something like this placement. As a flute player, you play one of the highest pitched wind instruments, and you're playing in the treble clef. And obviously as a bassoon player, you're gonna have to learn how to use bass clef. And this reads differently than treble clef. As you learn bass clef, it might be helpful for you to think about these phrases as you're learning the note names. You might think about good boys do fine always. And you also might think about all cows eat grass to differentiate between the lines and the spaces on the bass clef staff. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, if you have it, is take off your hand crutch, make sure that you're screwing this back in place, and just put it in your case. And again, your case may look completely different from mine. That's totally fine. Just put it in the way that you pulled it out. The next thing you'll want to do is take off the bocal, and you'll want to get any condensation out of the bocal. So you'll cover this pip, and then you will blow any condensation out of the bocal and put it in your case. Next thing you want to do is pull off the bell. So you want to do it the same way that you put it on. So you want to twist it off this way. I'm just going to set this right here, and then your bell is done. And then if you have a body lock like mine, you're going to pull that off. You're gonna hold the boot joint with your left hand while you twist off the long joint. And then you'll place the long joint in your case. The next thing you'll do is, again, holding the boot joint, you'll wanna take the wing joint, twist it off, similar to how you put it in. And for now, I'm gonna set my boot joint in my case. I'll come back to it, but I wanna swab my wing joint. So what I'm gonna do is I just turned it upside down, and I'm gonna drop the swab weight through here, and maybe you have a chain swab. Your swab may not look exactly like mine, but as long as it is a bassoon swab, it should be fine. And you're gonna pull it all the way through. Make sure you don't have any knots in the swab. And then I'm gonna for now, I'm just gonna set this in my case gently. I'm not ready to put it all the way in yet. Then I'm gonna swab out the boot joint. Now the boot joint can be a little bit tricky to swab out. So make sure that, again, you have a bassoon swab. Maybe you have a bassoon boot joint swab. You wanna take the weighted end and put it through the larger hole of the boot joint. And then you're going to kind of push the swab into that part of the boot joint. And now I'm going to try and bring the weight around the bottom of the boot joint so that you'll see it comes out the other side. All right, because we have kind of a U bend in the bottom of the boot joint. I'm just gonna make sure that there's no additional condensation right on the inside there. And then I'm going to place it in my bassoon case. Now, one thing you should know, your bassoon may have come with this or it may not have, is between your wing joint and your long joint, you should have some type of cloth right there. I have just kind of a regular cleaning cloth, and usually you'll be able to put it in so that the two joints can sit together, and that way they don't rub against each other when they're sitting in the case. So that is how you disassemble a bassoon, and you want to make sure that every single time that you are done playing the bassoon, that you do a complete swab of both the boot joint and the wing joint, and then it'll be ready to store away. It can feel a little bit intimidating to start the bassoon, especially if you're switching from an instrument like the flute, but as long as you follow the tips and tricks that I gave you today, and as long as you're putting in thoughtful practice time, you're gonna be just fine, and it's going to feel more comfortable as you go along. If this video was helpful to you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be uploading regular videos that help you learn how to play the bassoon. And if you have any questions about what I talked about today, or you want to learn about other topics related to learning the bassoon, go ahead and comment down below, and I'll answer as many questions as I can. I am here to help you learn how to play the bassoon and become confident and successful as a bassoonist.